All right, folks, today is the 16th of December, 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. We are called In the Image Clothing Company because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. And we allow our bodies that we've been given to just do what they do. And we come at it through clothing mostly. The other thing we touch on second most to clothing is flat things within the world when we have this rounding to our hands, and we live in a modern man-made world, so we address that and you know, allowing our hands to be accommodated by the things that we do in life. But clothing is the only thing placed on us physically that is always there. If it's imbalanced, if it's unnatural, it'll alter our bodies to such a great degree, and we don't want that. Because the body only works the way that it does. We address the skeletal system. It's not about the fat content, not about the muscle mass. Those things are conditional. They come and go at different times in our lives. But the body's about just a position, just one position that the body has, meaning everything has a neutral. The wrist has a neutral. The shoulders sit in a neutral position. The hips have a neutral position to allow the core to stay activated. The ankles have a neutral position. And so we just have to allow the body to do the only thing that it actually does. We just discuss truth here. We recognize, being centered around the gospel of Jesus Christ, that we are all equal sinful humans and we mess up. But to the best of what we can, we just discuss truth. There's no opinions that we could possibly do any good by pushing. So we just discuss things as they are. This video here is within the Truth Behind series. So 2 prerequisites just to allow the body to have a chance to operate natural that I've had since before I founded In the Image Clothing Company. They will always be the same. Lace your shoes with the technique that we use. Included with the technique is just to tie your shoes evenly over toward the inside. And all that technique does is just allow your foot to be unaltered. Any other combination of anything within shoelacing will alter your feet. And even no shoelaces will alter your feet, because now your foot's inside something that it's having to try to move around in. But our technique, you can sit on the edge of something and dangle your feet, and they will feel as though there's nothing on them besides the weight of the shoe, as long as your shoes aren't shaped unnaturally as far as the inside of them, or if there's a heel on them, or if there's stretch within the material. So that's our first prerequisite. The second one is to remove all tags from within every item of clothing, even the tongues of the shoes. If they're hard to get out of the tongues of the shoes, what I've done quite a bit actually is just take a pair of scissors or a knife and cut slits into that tag, because we need to be able to dorsiflex our feet, lift our toes like this, okay? And if there's that synthetic slippery tag against the top of your foot, right where your ankle is going to dorsiflex, then it's going to not really allow the ankle to do its natural thing. So there's our prerequisites. Tags within all the clothing, they cause an unnatural gap. So right where they're located, whatever's there is getting affected, and any part of the body that's playing into that location is getting affected as well. So, okay, I'm gonna stand up. I'm going to be standing for probably most of this. And yeah, I just wanted to intro it kind of up close, but you're gonna be able to see what I'm discussing here. So, yeah, this is the Truth Behind series. Oh, I'll mention where clothing needs to sit. Like I said, it's about the skeletal system, so this goes for every human, regardless of gender, man or woman, if you're tall or short, skinny or fat, right? Just whatever you are, whatever anyone wants to label you as. Your human being works how it works, the skeletal system. So what we need to have is our pants entirely above the hips, just so it's off of them, so they can open slightly higher in the front than the rear, to keep that core activated. The only way the core can activate is if the muscles can contract. And so in order for that to happen, that's the angle the pants have to sit in, okay? Okay? I say that as if I'm trying to be you hearing me? No, really though. The tops of our shoulder seams need to sit behind that little bone that's actually just the other end of your collarbone, and that'll just allow them to be in their neutral position, and then ideally right at the very edges for those edge seams. Now, a little bit of context before we get into the feet. This is the truth behind the feet, right? We have our Truth Behind series where we just discuss the truth behind things, movements, things within the body, and it's not a how-to blank, it's just let's discuss this thing as it is. There's a lot of misconceptions to the things that are in our Truth Behind series, and so we're just going to get down to the truth behind the feet. Now, let's talk about this. Feet, I think, oh, I was saying a little bit of context. What was I going to say? If it comes to me, it comes to me. The point with the feet, the bottom line, the focus that needs to happen, and then everything else can just come from there, is their feet point forward. If you're walking forward, your feet need to point in the direction that you are walking. Okay? It is immensely common nowadays for people to walk with their feet like this. So within the feet, there's an arch that grips inward. And I have, well, we've got a lot of videos, right, for In the Image Clothing Company, and I'm always talking about the arch within the feet. You will never be able to have an arch within your feet, an actual healthy arch, if you don't have toenails that go to the end of your toe. It has to support your toe completely, or else the end of your toe doesn't have support. And so you can't actually grip with your toes, and your toes are what's gripping to get that arch, to keep that neutral ankle. So when you think about the feet, and I've discussed this before, where like how I say that running is damaging to the body, something I will stand on till the day that I am no longer here to physically stand on that point. Yeah, always will I, Evan Strong, say that running is damaging to the human body, universal. But here's the thing, is no matter what we get into about running, let's say the body's in an ideal mechanical position to do it, which is very, 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 very rarely the case. No matter what, when you see people run, you almost always see them running with their feet pointed like this. But you're going forward. And I've discussed this when I've shown like the natural walking gait of a human's just walking cycle, right? But your knee, if it's going to bend in the direction you're going, it's going to bend in the direction you're going. And if your foot is turned different than the way you're going, your knee is going to bend different than the way you're going. But you are going that way still. And so the knee's just needing to track straight. Otherwise, it's just getting hurt. There's cartilage within the joint that the bones like slip on, right? Because the bones are moving, and in between the bones there's this cartilage that causes like a buffer. And if there's any kind of discrepancy at the bottom of this fairly simple hinge, then the hinge will change. Like if I was standing here and just moving with my foot pointed straight forward and my knee bending straight forward and back, and then I tweak my foot out just a little bit, I'd hit my own shin unless I took my pelvis out of its natural position, deactivating my core in order to get my own leg around my other leg, because it's not even pointing the direction that I'm going. So the big thing with the feet, first off, is they have to point the way you're going. If you're standing, you're gonna get so sore standing if you're facing this way and your feet are facing this way, because now all the muscles that are just activating the legs stemming from your foundation being your feet are in an unnatural position and a mechanical position that can't even do what they're designed to do. So your feet have to point straight forward. And the bottom line, the very basic thing to allow that to happen is to tie your shoes evenly. If you're tying a knot around your ankle that's uneven, you will never stand even. It's just a rope that you've tied differently on one side than the other. So that's first and foremost. So any problem that people are having with their feet, man, this is the Truth Behind series. Let's get real for a second with something that kind of will blow your mind if you, and not even just if you, most all people haven't heard about this. I can almost guarantee, unless you really have tied your shoes evenly for at least the past long enough to get out of patterns from tying them unevenly, I can almost guarantee if you look down at your feet right now, your right foot is wider, flatter with the arch, and sticking out slightly. when you sit at a table to do anything, when you sit in a chair, when you are just standing, I can almost guarantee that's the case. Your left foot's mostly normally straight and your right's sticking out. That right big toe probably can't put weight on it. I can almost guarantee that for just about every single human without ever having met you. I don't need to meet you, because if you're tying your shoes toward the right, that's going to be the case, okay? So, any kind of feet problem, well, this is the Truth Behind series. We're going to kind of just get into stuff that's going on. People injure their right foot, not their left. Not that it never happens on the left, but just almost always the right foot. People stub their right toe because they can't even get it out of the way from things, and there's no actual activated arch there. And then traveling up there, since that's your foundation, everything from there up is altered. So that right foot is just so absolutely inhibited from any kind of natural working at all. And then the left one's trying, but since the body only works as a whole, the left one's a little bit inhibited as well. So the thing with the feet is they have to point forward. That's what I said a minute ago. That's kind of what I started this with. They have to. And right now, sure, my feet are pointed a little bit out. And it's not like you can never have your feet in a position where they're not exactly straight forward. But that is their foundation. That's their normal, that's their direction they'd be pointing almost all the time, unless you're pivoting them to do something. It's like the head, like you're looking straight forward the direction that you're standing or walking. And then if you're going to turn to look to something, then you turn your neck. But the foundational point is forward, right? Your nose is going to point forward if you're just standing there. And your feet are going to point forward if you're just standing there. Otherwise, it's like if I were to be standing straight forward and I had my head like slightly turned. There's different activation within the muscles on each side of the neck, and then traveling down through the shoulder capsules and through the arms and down to the feet. That same thing is happening, but stemming from your feet coming up in those cases. So if you're standing and you don't have your feet even, then that's your very lowest point on this earth that we have that just pulls us straight down with gravity. And so anything from that point up, if there's a slight rotation and it's only on one side, even though it looks like your feet are out like this, really what it is your right foot's more out, but then your left foot's kind of like, following along sort of, and most of it's actually happening in your pelvis. But when we have any kind of discrepancy like that, it doesn't stop at the feet. It'll travel up through your whole body because, like I'm saying, it just has to work as a whole. And so it's all connected from really the lowest point when it comes to anything that's going to be load bearing within the body. So then what we need to do from there is allow our feet, even if you can stand evenly, you need to be able to have what's called dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, okay? Feet coming up is dorsiflexion, feet going down is plantar flexion, and that needs to just be able to happen freely and in a straight plane of motion. And that's something that almost everybody can't do in 2024 unless you're very, very intentional, because of clothing designs and because of just being unaware of the need to tie your shoes evenly, as I was until I was 24 years old. I mean, I get this out of experience. So when you have problems with your feet, when you're trying to strengthen your feet, when you're doing anything to your feet, you have to just allow first them to just be what they are. So that's what our shoelace technique does. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's nothing it does to your feet, nothing. It just allows them to be just encapsulated by the shoe, and that's the ideal. But if you have a tag within the shoe, you hear sometimes about arch reconstruction surgery, and people will get surgery to take that natural gripped arch that happens through muscles contracting, and they'll put like a plate under their foot, like a metal plate, or something like that that's unnatural in their feet, and you're only going to come out of that worse off. And I'm not trying to say like you're damned if you've done that, as if like, holy cow, worst thing ever, but you're only worse off at that point, unless there's been like an actual injury to your feet and it needs to be in some kind of way stabilized because it's been damaged to the point where the body can't heal itself through something. That's a different story. But the arch's grip, I mean, it's muscles that contract that cause that to happen. And yeah, you have to be able to stand with your feet forward. I mean, that's the basis of the feet, is they got to point forward. So, but what'll happen is if there's a tag on the tongue of your shoe and you try to dorsiflex your foot, some muscles will be deactivating because that slip within there right on top of the ankle is so unpredictable. Even if it's a little bit lower and it's not right on the ankle, because these are high tops, and so it would be just about right where my ankle's flexing. But let's say you're just wearing more of like a low top shoe. Even if it's on the top of your foot, the muscles still have to go down in there to be able to contract. You know, muscles have to insert on one end and the other, and then they pull those ends together. And if in between there's this slip or just on the muscle at all, it's going to be unpredictable to the point that the body is going to be kind of like rejecting it and not being able to like feel like it's safe to contract against, because it's just slippery. It's like trying to, you know, grab, like if you take a chunk of ice and you try to grab it from the, you know, sides, like let's say it's shaped like this and like kind of longish, like a rectangle type of thing, and you try to just pick up a piece of ice, it's just slippery. But you add a little bit of texture, even if you take the same piece of ice and like put grooves in it with like a rock, right? Seriously, and then you can pick it up. There needs to be some texture there for the muscles to be able to activate against. So that's something that no matter what, if there are tags within the shoes, is just going to inhibit the body, no matter what, because you're not gonna ever be able to, like, you or I or him or her could ever like be conscious to like tell our ankles every single motion, and even just sitting, they should already be activated, the muscles within there. You can't like consciously tell them to just like, hey, don't worry, I know it's slippery, but just activate normal. And so your feet are just so inhibited if there's any kind of slippery synthetic thing right against the ankle or the top of the foot or anywhere within there. It's just going to affect what it's against. And then that's going to travel through the rest of the body because the body works as a whole. So, arch reconstruction, it's not something you can do. It's not something that's actually real. It's artificial arch support, but you support an arch and it collapses. If I take something, I mean, even like if I were to take some of these sticks and like place them up against each other, right? You have a stick here and a stick here, you lean it against itself. If you put pressure on top of that, it's strong. But then if you come from the bottom and quote unquote support it, it'll just collapse. Anything from the bottom of the feet trying to support them will collapse them. It's like resting your arm on something to try to help your shoulder. The reason why if you put your arm in a sling when it's injured, the reason why that happens is to rest these muscles. But in order for the feet to be healthy, they need to be activated. And so like this upper trap right here, if I had my arm in a sling so that this muscle couldn't do its job, that's like putting something under the feet, calling it arch support, when the feet need to be able to have pressure on them and the muscles underneath need to contract. But you're putting something in that position where they're going to contract, and so it's like not allowing them to work. It's kind of the opposite end because the feet grip this way and the upper traps go like this way. But if you can see what I'm saying, anything within an insole that's going to be not flat under your feet is not supporting your arch. I don't care. I don't care. I don't give the slightest bit of a care what any kind of podiatrist is trying to tell you. That's a foot doctor. I don't care what any physical therapist is telling you or orthopedic person. I don't care in the absolute slightest if they're telling you that an insole will support your arch. That's just not. I mean, the body's just a mechanical machine, and that cannot support it. It just there's in no absolute case that could be supporting it. It couldn't happen. So I just want to make that so clear. People are getting fed disgusting information. I probably sound disgusted. I am. It's so crazy because if you have a heel on your shoe, then that's just going to change everything traveling up your entire body. But I don't know if it's once people get heels, they think that an arch will almost like compensate. I mean, like an arch support within something artificial. But like, I like to look at things as they are. I like to be just telling the truth. If you were to take something And like, this is my right foot, okay? And this is it on the ground, able to grip the ground. Now, if I took like this being an arch support as far as an insole, and I took this ability to grip and I placed an quote unquote arch support under it, now it can't grip because it's already like, there's something in the way. But if it's here, you can really like grip. It's like doing a push-up flat on the ground versus doing a push-up with, like I'm saying, like something under the middle of your hand. It's changing the way that everything activates. There's no opinion to arch support is an absolute myth. So with that being said, that's the bottom of the feet. So that's what actually ends up happening though, is people will be wearing things like that, like intending on supporting it, when that's actually what then causes a surgery like that to happen, is because going over time, what all you're doing is inhibiting your natural workings within the foot. And so if that's happening for, you know, years and years and years, even just a week, even just a couple of hours, is going to change the way the foot's naturally working. And then what you've done is created a patterning within muscles, certain ones like being deactivated and things being in a position they never would naturally be in unless you were just walking and you happen to step on something in the center of your foot. And then the next step though, like you don't, you know, I mean, so what happens is a patterning gets created within the ways that the muscles are activating. And then what people are actually addressing within arch reconstruction surgery is a patterning that has happened. It's nothing to do with their feet. It's something that they have done. And if you didn't know about it, it's not, you know, you can't be held accountable for the things you don't know, like we talk about within the gospel. But it doesn't matter if you knew it or not or what. The truth is, you've altered your foot into a patterning. And so now your foot's been so used to walking with something forced to be underneath it in the same exact location all day that you wear those shoes. And then once you take those shoes off, now your foot doesn't know how to function without that thing there. And so the ground seems so foreign to your feet when the ground is the only thing that's always there. And the shoes are something that are man-made, artificially placed under the foot. Wow, this is great. No matter how long this takes to explain, I really want to hit this thorough, because there's no opinion to that. So, okay. Anyway, meaning let's move a little bit onto the toes. The toes of the feet need to grip, like I'm saying. If they're flat on the ground, as they just would be, if you never had shoes on, that's natural. There's no opinion. Okay, walking on the ground, walking in the grass, a lot of texture for your hands being like the feet in this case, to, you know, grip, like your toes are gripping. Now, what happens actually a lot of the time is shoes will have the tip of them like come up. They call it toe spring, where the sole of the shoe comes and then the end of it like lifts off the ground. But if you're walking on the ground, you're never going to have that unless, like the arch support scenario, you know, with arch support, you're walking and maybe occasionally you might get something in the center of your foot as you walk over it. Or just if you're walking, when it comes to the toes, you might get something that is on the toes that kind of like puts them a little bit elevated more than just the regular ground. But then the next step, you wouldn't do that. So the foot just needs to be able to accommodate for things, and anything that's placed under it that's shaped a certain way, you're creating a patterning to work around that thing the entire time that it's there. And then it travels into X amount of time until your body is allowed to then get out of that patterning. And so the big thing is the toes need to be level, right, with the ground. Otherwise, like I'm saying, the muscles have to contract. Like the muscles have to shorten to get the toes to grip. And if the toes have something elevating them all the time, then they're not only not allowed to shorten, but they're overextended more than they would ever be without being within that shoe with toe spring. So that's just going to travel up the entirety of your body. All right. So pinching the feet inward. It's so common for shoes to be so much narrower in the toe box. This is what they call the end of the shoe, where your toes would sit. Like they're in a little like box, right? Just to be protected. That's why we wear shoes, is just to protect our feet. But it shouldn't restrict them at all. So your feet are in the toe box, but a lot of times it's so much narrower than the toes actually are. And so same thing, it's going to create a patterning of trying to work around something that's always the exact shape that the shoe stays when it's around your foot. So then you take your foot off, take your shoe off, and your foot only knows how to work within the shoe. But the shoe is just something that you'll throw away once it wears out. And your foot has to last you the entirety of your life if you're going to be able to use it. So, yeah, weird stuff. Anytime there's a heel, it's just going to affect your feet. I mean, we have videos on a lot of this stuff, so I don't want to go too into depth on things that I've already made like a full video about. But a big thing I do want to mention is the whole idea of strengthening the feet or doing exercises to strengthen your feet's function. You can do that all you want, but then you put your foot back into something that's encapsulating it, that doesn't accommodate its only natural workings, then all those exercises are immediately void, if you will, just immediately gone to waste the second you place your foot into something that is not shaped the way that it is. No matter what, there's no possible way that couldn't be. I mean, there's nothing impossible with our God, but out of our own doings, there's no way. So there's no need to, well, and I say this all the time, there's no need to stretch, there's no need to exercise or work out for the sake of doing that. If we're just living our lives and letting our bodies just function, they'll just function. And that's what we do here, is show how to let that happen. And it's available to everybody, unless you've got your own things that are inhibiting like certain parts of your body. We're all individuals, but you don't have to exercise your feet for them to work. They just need to be allowed to do the things they do. The muscles are just connecting to the bones, and the bones are just connecting to each other, and they just have the position they work in, and they'll just do it unless they're not allowed to. There'd be no reason why the body wouldn't work unless there was a reason it couldn't. That's what I always say, that's the truth. And that couldn't could be anything, but it's always the case that it is the shoe if the shoe is in any way altering the foot's natural workings at all, because you're just altering its natural workings. So a big thing is waistlines on pants, things in the pockets. If you have your waistline in an angle it's not supposed to be, and I mentioned where it needs to be just for the skeletal system to work, if your waistline's any different angle than that, the arches in your feet aren't going to be able to work natural, because your feet and your hips are going to be doing pretty much the same thing. Meaning, if you're standing, your hips can't be in their natural positions if your feet aren't. And if your hips are in an unnatural position, your feet can't be, just because it's going to change the whole chain of your body, and the body works as a whole. So it's silly, man. It's really silly. You know, this is a thing. I'm not trying to call people out, but this is the case. I've shown people our shoelacing technique even before I founded In The Image Clothing Company, and they didn't do it, and they didn't listen to it. And that's entirely up to them, but then they're having pain within their feet and sitting down all the time because their feet hurt, and then sitting in a chair somewhere around 90 degrees of the bends with any 90 degrees bend at the knees or hips with weight on the hamstrings, just damaging your body further anyway. And I already told them what's going to help them, and it's not because of me, but it's just the only way that it's going to allow it to fit around the foot. So this is what's weird, and this is why I get kind of like disgusted, if I'm just being real, not with people, but with the world, when it comes to the stuff we talk about within the company, because people are manufacturing shoes. You'll see shoes nowadays, like they'll brand them as a running shoe, and they've got like a marshmallow on the bottom. It's like this tall of like squish, and your muscles have to activate to work. That's the whole point of going on a run in people's intellect. Like I said, I will always say that running is damaging to the body, and it's not an opinion, not a claim. I can discuss it to the point that you just have to see what's going on. But if your intent on going on a run is to strengthen your body, and your feet are what's allowing you to run, you would not be able to run without your feet. And if you don't have feet, that's fine, but you're not watching this video if you don't have feet. But you are intending on strengthening your body and like allowing it to work better through what you're doing when you're running, yet you're running on a marshmallowy cloud material that your body's muscles can't even predict. Like if you were to stand on like a gel cushion thing for a minute, you would be feeling pain within your feet because you're trying so hard to stabilize against something that is unpredictable. But that's the same thing as your shoe sole in those running shoes, quote unquote running shoes, the ones they brand as running shoes. It's got squish to it. Yeah, I mean, if there's something that's in your house or that you can have access to that's squishy, that you can step on without, destroying it or whatever, find something like that if you want and stand on it and try to just stand for like a minute. And you'll feel so much fatigue traveling up your entire body because there's no support there. It's such an absolute myth. People putting these cushiony soles in shoes. They're weakening their whole body. They're causing it to just try its absolute best to be able to stand, and then that's what you take to go push it through a run. It's already going to damage your body doing a run if your body was in its absolute most ideal mechanical position as far as just running for exercise, like an extended length. I mean, running short distances, yeah, the body can do that just fine. But, over time, again and again and again, impact, and I've gone over it. But yeah, I mean, it's just absurd. The slightest bit of heel on your shoe, well, first of all, it limits your dorsiflexion. If your foot's here and you're going to lift your toes, but then it's now here because there's a heel on your shoe, now you can lift your toes less than here, right? I mean, it's just, you just got to see it. And, again, you cannot be accountable for things you don't know. You can't, because you don't know what you don't know, and that's entirely fine. But what's so damaging is when people are pushing things that they think is truth, or pushing things that they think will help. And again, we make mistakes as human beings. I'll make mistakes left and right. I have for my entire life. I will for the rest of it, okay? But like within this kind of stuff, there's no dispute to this, and it's crazy. It's a whole kind of like bind type of thing where I want to say how obvious it is, but I didn't know it either. And so it's really weird how blinded we can get by stuff like that. But no matter what you do within your clothing, man, you get your clothing to sit correct where we discuss it needs to. You allow your body to work through all that, but you're wearing shoes that even laced correct, right? Tags removed from the tongues, but then the sole is squishy and so gross. Your entire body is going to be in pain through the entirety of it because you just can't stabilize against something squishy. There's nothing squishy in nature. I mean, like, sure, there's moss, there's mud, but what I mean is you're not going to be spending time on that thing because you're going to step into mud, be like, ooh, that's squishy, and step out of it, like, clean off your foot. If we didn't have these weird shoe soles, if there was ever any kind of thing, like something we have in life for, like, another function, and it fell onto the floor, and you stand on it, it's, like, squishy and weird, you'd be like, oh, what the? But this is what we use. Not me, but the manufacturers of these shoe companies. And so it's so weird. Because like I'm saying, it wasn't obvious to me either. And so it's I think the weirdest thing about it is how blinded we can actually get. Really. We always talk about being in the world and not of, right? That's a verse within the Holy Bible. We're centered around the gospel of Jesus Christ. I mean, we're just talking about truth, and it's very strange. So yeah, the feet just have to be able to work. I've discussed this. I mean, we've got a lot of videos about a lot of stuff that correlates with this. I'm not sure if I need to be even mentioning any titles of other videos for this to like relate this to, but the thing is, you got to be flat on the ground. Your feet have to just work as if you were walking on the ground. So you place anything different inside of a shoe, and it's different and always there. You can't get away from it because it's within something you've tied onto your foot. It's just so unnatural. So the point with the foot's motion is I'm gonna sit back for a second. Oh my goodness, I've been in a full deep squat that whole time, ever since I got into it. There's that neutral position of the ankle, right? I'm a little bit needing to stretch out after being in that for that long, but it's that neutral position of the ankle. When people have their feet and they're trying to like dorsiflex or plantar flex, dorsiflex, plantar flex, dorsiflex, plantar flex, it just has to go straight. What you'll see is people be sitting there like this and like putting their feet up and down. This is not actual dorsiflexion of your ankle, because there's certain muscles that are just not even doing anything when you're out here, because it needs to work in line. Like your core, for example, I mean, you're dorsiflexing, you're actually taking your back rather than in here contracting your core, because of the angle of the natural ankle and the way that the arch grips. Dorsiflexion is actually almost like in a little bit, like sitting here. This is dorsiflexion, and a lot of people will be sitting like this with the angle of their ankle like this. So like I'm saying, with, you know, muscles being like turned off, you try to dorsiflex out here, but you get as high as you can, and then if you turn in, you can go a lot higher, just because the mechanical position of the actual bones connecting, it's not here, it's here, in line with the leg. That's not in line with the leg, right? So like when people have problems getting up and down stairs, if they're doing it with their feet pointed out, well, you're bending your knee to get up the stair. In a different angle, you're bending your foot. So everything just has to work in line. I think that's a huge thing, is the misconception of what it actually means to lift your toes, because it doesn't mean this. My legs are like here. It means this. There's just so much more dorsiflexion than people are even aware of within their own feet, and within mine as well, for all the years that I had shoes laced and tied uneven, and everything else within clothing that just doesn't allow it, because your pelvis has to be in its natural position for your feet to come up. If you can't contract your core, and let's say my core is deactivated, I can't get my feet up, and I feel it in my back. But if I tuck my core, now I can get my feet up, because all the muscle, I mean, everything, the body works as a whole. So it's just sad. It's sad to see people getting like surgeries and things that are just so unnecessary. And it's not just like, oh, you went through that and shoot, that was a lot to do, but then you're altered for the rest of your life. And it didn't have to happen if you just knew the truth about your own feet. And we would all know the truth about our own feet if they had never been altered. If we had never placed them within shoes that have anything with the sole, like I was discussing, or the insole. Anything within the toe box being smaller than the toe's natural in-line position, like the fingers, you know? I mean, the fingers just grip like this, and they don't grip like closed off like this. Toes, they're the same thing. You follow the bones of your toes down, you follow the bones of your feet down, and go straight out to your toes, and then they'll just move like the hands will. But if they're altered, they just won't be able to work. That's all we're talking about. There's nothing within this to do, like I mentioned at the beginning. It's just the truth behind. It's sad. It's genuinely very sad for people's well-being, for people's alteration of their body because of this, the shoe, then furthering that with a surgery because of a patterning. There's nothing wrong with your body, because that's the other thing, is the body will fix itself. You know, it's like when you get a cut on yourself, like scraped up against something or whatever, you're bleeding, you just kind of like cover it up so that it's ideally safe from getting hurt worse, and the body will just heal itself. Same with the feet. No matter how many years you've spent within shoes that are altering your feet, stop it, remove the shoes, and let your feet just be working. Our shoelacing technique, tying your shoes evenly, and just wearing things that accommodate your foot, barefoot shoes, ideally. And that's just a style of shoe. That's what these are, the style that these are. And from that point, your foot will just go back to the only working natural it has. Because unless things within the body are not altered, if things aren't altered, then they just work. If they're altered, they can't. That's it. And that's it. I've said this before where, take your hand and you put a glove on, and the glove has a spot for each finger, right? And then the thumb. And then you can just do things with your hands, and they have a covering on them to keep them safe. That's what we need our shoes to be. Now, if you take your hand and you put, if you know what a mitten is, it's like, instead of a slot for each finger, it has like a slot for all 4 of these fingers so they can still bend together, and then it has a slot for the thumb. Now, you can still kind of do things, but your hand's very much altered. That's how most modern shoes are, and that's how even a good shoe, like you take a barefoot shoe that's a good width for your foot and it fits well and it's laced incorrect, that's the same thing as having a mitten. Because the only way the hand actually works is the only way it works. A mitten changes it. The only way the feet work are the way that they work, and that's it. And if your shoes don't just like sit on your foot like with no restriction, then there's restriction, period. It's like going through your entire life wearing mittens and expecting your hands to work, and then getting like arch reconstruction surgery in your hands. Not that it'd be called that, but you know what I mean? Or like complaining about what people would label as arthritis, quote unquote, within the hands while you're wearing mittens through everything you do. Okay, I love this. I love that this turned out how it did. So the truth behind the feet is they'll just work. This is a thing. I was thinking about this the other day in my house, where I was watching actually this documentary, and there's this dude who was in South Africa, and he just walks around. There's a lot of people in a lot of parts of the world that don't really wear shoes that often. And in the United States of America, where I live here, it's kind of almost rare to see people without shoes. And so I was realizing though, people, they're walking through the desert, they're walking through the plains, they're walking through the forest, they're walking through anything at all that's on the earth, that's natural. They don't have shoes on, and their feet are safe. I was thinking it's no less safe to walk out there than it is to walk in your house on your carpet and having potentially dropped like a sewing needle, right? You'd be all concerned about cacti that you could step on outside, or pokey things or whatever. But in your house, there's the same potential for anything small and sharp to drop and get in your carpet. It's just as safe to walk outside barefooted as it is inside. And times and places, but it really is. And actually more safe to a degree, because walking on tile or hardwood or any man-made flooring that's really flat is damaging to your foot because of its natural grip. And walking out here, you can kind of see like these little chips of wood that they use around the bed of this tree, on the grass, anywhere that's natural, nature, your foot can grip and it can work, and those muscles can just stay healthy, traveling through the rest of your body. But walking on these man-made floorings, there's nothing for your feet to grip, and it's kind of like what I was saying about grabbing the ice. You use something with your hand that's just so flat or so slippery, it's not going to be able to work because it wants to grip. Same with the feet. So I do correlate the hands and the feet together a lot. There's only one difference in the number of bones in the hands and the feet, and their operations are so extremely similar. So yeah, you got to just let them work. If you have stretch within anything ever, within clothing or within anything, the body can't predict stretch. Like how it can't predict the slippery tag, it can't predict stretchy shoelaces. So I'm actually using just rope that has no give at all in these laces. Because even doing something like this, if my arches were trying to like stay active and there's stretch, they wouldn't be able to, and I'd feel it in like my hip flexors or somewhere else up my body. It just travels up. So yeah, That truth behind the feet. Check out In The Image Clothing Company, because we don't care to get somebody on board with what we're talking about. We don't care as far as like, because we are talking about it. We don't care to like have any opinion to ever push or try to convince or try to believe. I say all the time, like, please don't believe me on anything I say here. But I'm speaking truth, and I'd love you to find out that it is true. Because just watching this video, yeah, maybe you hear what I'm saying, and you're like, oh, that really does make sense. Or maybe you're like, I'm not really sure. No matter what, you can go within your own life and try to wear shoes that don't have squish in the sole, and then try to wear shoes that do, and see the difference. You can go through your life and have artificial arch, quote unquote, support be placed under your feet, and then go through life without that and see the difference. You can lace your shoes with our technique. It's not ours, but just the one that we use at In The Image Clothing Company, and see that it does not alter your feet, and just see the comparison between that and the way that they were laced before. You can have stretchy laces in, and I'm not ever telling people to buy anything else. I've never said to go spend money, ever, never. Up until today's date, at least. I've never said that. I can't speak for down the road, but I won't. Right. But I could, but probably won't. The point is, if you have like another pair of shoes sitting around that has no give within the laces, and the ones you've been wearing for the past, like, who knows how long, have stretch, swap the laces out, and so that you can know for yourself. Don't believe me on anything. Don't believe me. Please don't believe me. But take what I'm saying and find the truth in it for yourself. We just discussed truth at In The Image Clothing Company. That's what we do. That's what this is. That's the whole point. And again, I'm not that you got to really even care about my progress for the sake of anything it's going to do for you, other than be the example of truth. Because I to the best of what I can, I live what I share within this. I practice what I preach, you know. So my body never functioned the way it does now. I never stretch now. I never have to work out to be able to be functional, and I'm pretty sure I'm stronger than I've ever been at any point in my life, no matter what I was doing in those times. And again, it's not about me, it's about the comparison versus just allowing the body to work versus trying to get it to do something. We can't get our bodies to do anything. And anything within anything that's anything, altering the feet at all, is trying to get them to do something. We just have to let them. So, cool. Yeah, feet go in line. Feet go in line. When you're sitting, when you're standing, when you're walking, even when you're sleeping, because you sleep and you put your feet out and your whole back, your lumbar spine arches and your pelvis goes anterior, your core deactivates. A lot of muscles of your body just deactivate. You need to keep your body in line, because everything should always be activated. And if you have feet, you have to let them work. If you have feet, even if you're paralyzed and you're sitting in a wheelchair, just because you have the feet and they're connected to the rest of you, it's a mechanical thing, right? Meaning you're sitting in a wheelchair and you're here, and like, even if you're paralyzed, like, put your feet forward or have somebody help you put your feet forward and keep them forward. If your feet point out, the rest of your upper body goes too, just because it's connected to you. It doesn't matter if there's even muscle activation or any kind of nerve endings that work in there at all. If you have a foot, it's just going to take your entire body traveling up with it, the direction it goes. So it just needs to be straight. And yes, they go slightly in when you walk, and the arch grips slightly in, but you know what I mean, straight. Okay, I don't know, man. When I say I don't know, and this is something I'm like, I've got so much passion behind, because the body starts at the feet. Like I'm saying, even if they don't like work, as far as the muscles can't activate, if they are there, they're affecting your entire body, even if there's never weight on them. So they just have to be allowed to be what they are. Everybody's works the same. Sure, if you got a deformed foot, that's one thing. But like I'm saying, if your foot just is what it is, it's just the same as everybody else is. It's like you look at a hand, and unless somebody really has had, you know, they were born with a deformed hand, or they had something where they cut off a finger or two, then everybody's hands just work the same. The feet just work the same. I mean, we just have to let the body do its thing. If I sound like some pouty kid on the floor, on the ground, that's fine. I'm cool with that. Just because we are going to help everybody that ever comes in contact with what we do at In The Image Clothing Company. We're gonna change people's lives and not have them have to do anything. It's always removing. I said this thing one time. We have In The Image Clothing Company podcast where we have discussions on the gospel and the gospel of Jesus Christ. And one time I said something like, I think it was minimize, simplify, allow. And I was like, if that becomes what we say, then you'll know it was from here. That's what we do, man. It's about minimizing things that we use, simplifying what they are, and just allowing the body to work. And it will. Very, very, very rare cases do you have to actually address anything within the body. It happens, times and places, of course, for everything. But very, 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 very rarely does that have to happen. It's just that we get in such bad positions, such bad patternings. Our bodies are forced to do things that just is not anywhere near the only natural workings that they have, and we don't get to decide what they are. So, okay, feet. Some simple things like I've mentioned in a lot of other videos for In The Image Clothing Company. Stop your lacing right where your ankle will flex. Otherwise, you're just closing off something that you want range of motion in. And if the range of motion can't be there, it's compensated somewhere else, and it's your hips and then traveling up. Yeah, okay. I think I've mentioned what I need to, because we've got content for other things, but I wanted to mostly go over the feet and just their natural. Really, the biggest thing that I said within this was just to keep them straight forward. And there's no exercises to do that because that's their natural position. Just allow them through the lacing technique, removing the tags, keeping heels off the shoes, keeping the toe box wide enough for your toes, and no stretching things, no toe spring on the ends. That's it. That's it. Well, okay. Gosh, I mean, that's the thing, is I don't want to go into this whole thing because I've got videos about all this stuff, but the point is, yeah, check out In The Image Clothing Company. Anything to do with the feet, as far as shoelacing stuff or shoes or whatever, we got a lot of videos like that. But you just have to let them work. You just have to. The point is, like, I say this a lot too, where like I've got a problem with specialists because they look at the thing that has been in pain and they try to address that. You're trying to address your feet by like a surgery to them, you're not going to fix anything, because then even after that surgery, if you still tie your shoes unevenly, you're going to have the same problem now with a foreign thing in your foot, being that like metal plate or whatever it is that they've placed in there. And so stuff like that's so strange. Yeah, if you don't know, you don't know, and that's fine. But it's strange no matter what, because I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, it's just nuts. So just let them do their thing. Let them do their thing. Really, that's the whole point. Is I can look at people, and if you want to address people's shoulder health, you can try to do that all you want and have like a surgery done to their shoulders, but if they stand with their feet pointing out, no matter what you do, no matter what amount of exercises or surgeries or anything you do to your shoulders, they will never work correct if your feet are pointing out. Because that's your foundation, and from there up, it's like what I was saying with the bending of the knee, it's altered because your foot's out, and so it goes from your knee to your hip to your shoulders. I mean, like, it just travels up because everything from anything lower in the body is supporting anything higher in the body as it stands or walks, so, or anything vertical, right? I mean, yeah, so it's very strange. The feet need to be forward, just forward, and again, slightly in, just because that's how the arch grips, and, you know, there's a lot going on, but we just have videos on all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I think a big thing is, no matter what people want to do, trying to address people's bodies, they can look at the entirety of their body and they can address any part of it above the feet. If the feet are out or if the arches are collapsed, you're wasting your time with anything you address above them. you have to address your feet first, because they dictate everything else, just because of how our earth is structured with gravity. So anyway, please don't ever think or believe anybody else who tells you you have to do exercises to get your body to work. It's false. It's entirely untrue. And we have so many videos, just, I don't want to use the word proving, because we're not proving anything, we're just shining light on what's going on. But we have so many videos just discussing stuff, again, just truth that people don't know, and that's fine, but it's truth. You don't have to exercise your body. You just have to use it for what you need it to do, and it'll just do those things unless it's restricted. I don't care how much I sound like a broken record within that. I don't like to be redundant. I don't like to repeat myself ever. But when I say those phrases, I couldn't say them too much. Just allow the body to work. So much damage is happening to people's bodies because they are going and getting surgeries that are entirely just, it's not even fun to watch happen. So anyway, yep, there you go. Keep your feet normal, neutral. If you can just put your shoe on after lacing it correct and tying your shoes even, and you can just like dangle your ankle and there's no restriction, then you just know that you're going to be fine at that point. That's all. That's it. I mean, if they're just allowed to be there, then they're just allowed to be there. You wouldn't go through life with mittens on, doing everything that you would be like wearing shoes for. But that's essentially the same thing when it comes to the feet. So I know that I get upset. Well, I'm not even really upset, but I know that I sound like I'm upset. I know that I sound a little bit forceful. I know that I sound harsh, and I'm harsh for sure. The truth, people take the truth to be harsh, definitely. But it's just because I care. It's because I've experienced these things myself, and I don't want anybody else to have to. I've said this within a lot of videos, I wore 6-inch waterproof leather boots with an inch tall heel for, around 3 years. And they were laced wrong, they were tied uneven, and, I suffered the repercussions, and I'm still suffering some of those repercussions now, even though that was years back, because the body gets into patternings. So, yeah. Just look at your foot. Look at the bones. It's like looking at the back of the bones of your hand and then following them out to your toes. Well, these are your fingers in this case, but the same thing, they'll just work in line, and they just open and close in line, and you don't want them to have to be trying to do anything else because you just can't get them to. This is almost like a podcast episode. We have In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and this is kind of how that feels. It's like I'm just sitting here talking at this point, but I think one of the reasons is I'm sitting down, and normally I just sit down within the podcast episodes. Within the main company, area of things, within the videos for those, I'm almost always standing, but I wanted you to be able to see my feet. So, yeah. Just picture your leg in line, and it is just pointing and straightening, pointing and flexing, right? And not like this. You're just gonna have so much pain. You're gonna damage your ankles and your knees potentially, and your hips, your lower back. Yeah. And people will get like so much tension out here. Again, out of experience, I know. You should never feel tension here, because an arch grip's here. But if you're dorsiflexing out here, you're just contracting this muscle in such an unnatural position, the knees in, the ankles in, but everything in line, and just dorsiflexing, plantar flexing. But the point is, it will never happen without removing a tag from the tongue. That's the thing. We just discussed truth. It's just what it is, man. I hope that I sound like I'm a complainy person, because this is how... There's a lot of emotion in this for other people's sakes, because I know these things, and I'll just spend the rest of my life doing them for my own personal body, but I want people to hear truth, man. It's crazy to just live in a world where your entire life is harder because you just don't know that you need to tie your shoes even. Stuff like that, just the simplest little things. It's always the little things that change our lives. So I'm going to transition this now. I could sit and talk about the feet all day. This is one of those videos that is almost bigger than anything else. No matter what, even if you never did anything with your clothing, you didn't allow it to sit correct or fit correct, or gosh, I mean, no matter what you ever do, if you're ever using your feet, and like I said, even if they're just there, you can be entirely paralytic from like your waist down, but if they're just there because they are connected to the rest of you, if they're altered, the rest of your entire fleshly being is altered. I could sit here and talk about the feet forever, and there's so much that I haven't said within this that, I mean, I could go into such depth on whatever we could get into within the feet, but it's sad. I mean, you know, within the gospel, we talk about a firm foundation, talking about building our house on a rock rather than building on the sand. You picture a rock, a good solid shoe sole, nice and flat, good grounded thing to be walking on, versus a cushiony, squishy marshmallow sole is like putting your house on the sand. The water comes up and washes away that sandy beach, and now your house is gone. You're walking on this marshmallowy, cushiony thing that your body can't actually work on, and now all the musculature within your entire body is gone. It's crazy. Okay, anyway, yeah, I'm gonna be done talking about the feet. We'll talk about feet forever. In the Image Clothing Company is going to be a lifelong thing for me, and then if it goes on after I'm not here in this form to be doing it, then it'll keep going on. But as far as this video for the Truth Behind series, that's what I'm gonna say. Yeah, there was no like really like specific focus on what I touched on in this or not necessarily, but some really good foundational things. And then if you'd like to just keep up with what we're doing at In the Image Clothing Company, or just check in every once in a while and we just discuss truth. So we have In the Image Clothing Company podcast, where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then we have three avenues of this company, right? The third one after this and then the podcast is In the Image Clothing Company music, and that's going to be something that's going to just grow and to go as it does. It's going to be really cool. So yeah, we'll have clothing available, always made out of 100% natural materials, staying centered, fitting correctly, and just allowing the body to work. That's what we do here. We don't only talk about clothing, we talk about other things, positions that we get into in our lives as far as sitting or, you know, lifestyle choices and things. And so really we're just about letting our bodies work. We're centered around the gospel of Jesus Christ and just discussing truth. So there's your feet, man. There's your feet. Yeah. Please check out the lacing technique. I'll show it in this. I'm not just going to be like, if you want to, you got to go find it. I mean, normally within videos, I just say that you can find it, just because if I show it in every single video, then it just takes up more of the video when it's already in a good place by itself. But I'll show it before I cut this out. But lace your shoes correct, tie them even, and then they'll just work, because then the shoe's just something encapsulating them to cover them from anything that could potentially harm them, to whatever degree that's happening. As far as, you know, you got really durable material, then it's going to be more protective, or like something quite thin, it's less protective against something like hard hitting them. But the point is, that's all shoes are, is to protect the feet. You can talk about fashion and get into wanting things for that reason, but that's different, because then again, once you get shoes that are fashionable, normally the reason they're fashionable is because the design choices as far as the cuts and the shapes are just unique. And if it's anything that's different than the natural shape of your foot, then it's altering the only way your foot works. So I'm going to come to the camera a little bit. My head's going to be cut off, but I'm going to just let you look at the lacing, and then I'll tie both of my shoes so you can see how I tie my own shoes. It's just exactly what I say our shoelace technique is. And again, don't just think like, well, I've been tying my shoes a different way for so long, or I've got this thing that works better, or this or that, whatever you want to believe. I don't care. I don't believe something about this. This is the only way to not alter your feet. Has to be paired with removing anything synthetically slippery within there to not alter your feet. But as far as the laces go, this is the way to do it. Anytime you have shoes that don't have laces in them, I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but your foot's going to just be trying to like find the insides of the shoe. It's like wearing a glove that's like 2 sizes too large, and you're trying to hold the glove on as you're doing things, and now your inline hands aren't anymore because they're like holding the glove. So the laces allow the shoes to fit like a glove. So that's really huge, because I've mentioned that before. I made an entire video about that actually, where the solution to potentially having incorrectly laced and tied shoes is not to get shoes with no laces, because of what I just discussed. Yeah, because the arch grips inward, and so if there's like nothing really cinching that shoe up to where it's just nice and snug around the foot, shaped exactly, at least as far as the laces go, how the foot is, then that gripped arch will not be able to be there, because it's going to just be finding the edges of the inside of the shoe. Or as you lift your toes, there's a gap between the top of the shoe and your toes, and so you're losing activation between that gap until you hit the top, and then you can dorsiflex, and that's just going to cause stiffness within your ankles, just because they're doing things that are trying to accommodate for something they, again, can't predict. There's that weird gap in between there. So again, there's no opinions in what we talk about here. I mean, we make mistakes, of course, we're humans, but like there's no opinions in any of this kind of stuff. And this video could be hours long, and I could really get into it. I don't want to. Gosh, man, I don't even know what I'm saying I don't want to do. I know the extent of all this. I know the extent of the effect of it. I know how much pain people can be in, because I was in so much chronic pain in certain times of my life, and now I'm not. And the only thing that I did was allow my body to work, just stop restricting it. Okay, my head's gonna be cut off, but check this out. I don't want to put my knee on the grass. So this is our technique, right? Looks just like this. I'm not gonna even discuss how to do it because you can see it, and we have our official video. This is my right shoe. Okay, this is my left shoe. It's the same thing, but just opposite. There's two sides of the body. I'm gonna just tie them. Again, always just over toward the inside. This is my right shoe. Okay, over toward the inside, tie it, and then what I do is I make two bows like this, but then I'll take now the one that's on the inside and put it over the outside one and tuck it, because that way it's like tying a square knot. It'll just never come undone, really. I mean, pretty much, and it just stays horizontal. And now here's your left foot. Again, always over toward the inside, just so they're even, just exact opposites, because there's two sides of the body. And then when I make my two bows like this, right, now you just go the opposite way you went the first time. So now this goes over toward the outside and tucks. And then, like I said, it just allows them to sit horizontal. It's like tying a square knot, which really will only get tighter as it gets pulled on. I mean, depending on if it's a really slippery material or whatever, but right, there you go. Please do that. Don't believe me on anything, but like I'm saying, try things. Try it. Just try this stuff, man. Your life will change. It's no opinion. No opinion, no opinion. The truth behind the feet. They just have to be allowed to work. Anything besides what I just showed there with lacing is going to alter your feet. That's it. That's it, and that's it, and that's it. No opinions. Man. It's humbling, man, is really what it is, because we're not supposed to be doing stuff to ourselves. We're just given this body that just works. And we need to just get in tune with our own bodies. And we have every ability to do that. And being able to share this kind of information, like, I've thought about this so much. You teach somebody how to tie their shoes. It's like I was 24 years old. If somebody were to tell me that and I wasn't open to listening to it, like, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I've been tying my shoes for 24 years, or like 20-ish years, But you got to hear what we're actually saying here. Like, it's going to change your life. I don't have any kind of sales pitch. I'm not selling anything about in this video. I mean, like, you don't got to believe me. That's why I say, please don't believe me. But I've been through this with people personally. And so online, if I'm just some kid who you come across a video about, like, you have the potential to just like brush it off, and that's entirely up to you, but it's just truth. So, oh gosh, okay. Truth, man. Truth, truth, truth. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. Don't believe me, but it is. All right, I'm gonna cut this. Like I said, it's the 15th. It's the 16th of December, 2024. Pretty sure that's the same date that I said at the beginning. Just meaning, I'm pretty sure that's the date. I think it's the 16th of December, 2024. So, yeah, my name's Evan Strong. You're gonna see me if you want to find me. You'll find more in the Image Clothing Company stuff, and it's gonna be so big, not for us, not for the company or for me at all, but I just know for sure that it's gonna be something that's really big, impact-wise, really big, as far as like. Truth is big. I mean, truth is all we want. Truth is all we're looking for. And truth is in the little things, you know. Our God is in the details. It's in like, hey, tie your shoes a little bit different, here you go. You know, I mean, remove a tag. And that's, I know it's kind of frustrating, it's kind of annoying, you don't want to have to hurt your shoes, but you don't want to spend the rest of your life battling something like that physically. That's all you're gonna do. You're just battling it. You're battling the tag, you're battling uneven knots, you're battling an unevenly meshed rope across the top of your foot. Anything within the shoe itself that's, like I said, not just letting it be what it is, you're just battling that thing the entire time you're wearing it and when you take it off, because you've trained the patterning. So now your sleep is taking a toll, and just everything. I mean, your core is going to be deactivated if your feet are altered, and so now the core is the center of your whole being, and your digestion will change. And I mean, it just gets so deep. You know, we talk about the jaw and its natural function is to stabilize the entire body, but if the feet are altered, your jaw is going to sit differently. I talk about all the time how connected the feet, the hands, and the jaw are. Like, this gets so deep. That's why I said, like, I could sit here literally. I'm not just saying like that. I mean, I could actually sit here and talk about for hours just the feet alone and like not be redundant within it at all. Like but I don't need to. You don't even need to know anatomy other than just what's going to be allowing your feet to work. So that's what I've shown. It'll always stay the same. I'm gonna have this company my whole life, and we will always have the exact same shoelace technique. It'll never change. Human beings' feet don't change. Like, you just gotta be allowed to just, dude, it hurts. And it's weird. It's like, I don't know, maybe whoever you are watching this, you heard me the first time, and like, but it's like, I just feel like it's something we could just never stop hitting. Truth, right? Share the gospel in all places, in all ways, always. Yeah, that's like this shoelace technique. Just no matter how many times we say it, just say it again, right? No matter how many times you feel like you've tried to pray to ask for answers, pray again. You know what I mean? It's like those kind of things. Truth is truth, and this is just the truth of how the feet work naturally to the human body. Okay, I'm gonna cut it, except I don't want to feel like it's like too long and I just need to, but let them work, man. Just let them work. Well, okay, yeah, socks. Socks are so important. Don't put any kind of, like I'm saying, fake arch support within the shoes. There's fake arch support within anything stretchy within socks that's going around the center of your foot. If there's any kind of contraction there, it's fake. Those muscles, it's like putting a tourniquet on your bicep and expecting it to contract. Gosh, I'm disgusted. I am, but like, you know, out of love. Yeah, it's like taking something really tight around your arm and trying to lift your arm. That's putting something around your sock, like that, you know, compression socks. The arch support, stretchy stuff within the center of your sock, right? Same thing. And it's not obvious when you can compare it to something like this, but when we just don't know, because it's when you walk through a store where there's socks being sold and they just have those squishy, like stretchy center parts. It's just something we're used to, but it's so damaging. Socks need to be put on evenly, and as you bring them up, just do like a very slight outward rotation. that follows the slight outward bow of your leg, the slight outward angle of your neutral ankle, and there you go. I know my feet are pointed out a little bit. I just want to address that because I know that people, because of how much passion I have behind this, people would be like, you know, you got your feet out while you're sitting there. I understand. There's so much more to it than just, you know, I'm not making a blanket statement. And that's the whole thing about, I could sit here for hours and discuss the truth behind the feet. So anyway, okay, thank you.